I read something very interesting recently where there's sort of two different economies going on, and I'm definitely feeling one of them. It's the people that bought their house before 2020 and the people who bought their house after 2020. Because, like, Ed Bullion, Mr. Shrewd Negotiator here, has his home paid off that he bought before 2020, and it's now worth double probably. And yeah, he doesn't have a 7% mortgage like I do. Anyway, so that's basically my scenario. I was no longer in my previous garage, Hoovie's Garage 2.0, I'm not sure how else to put it, and I needed a new home and a new garage. I was living in a hangar, borrowed for a while I took my time to build exactly what I wanted. No compromising, no settling, something that would last basically me forever. And that required me going rural, basically, going into the country, but I needed to be on paved roads. So that's a little difficult in Kansas. There's plenty of acreage and big properties and all that stuff, but most of it is on dirt, or it's so far out that you're way outside civilization, getting the kids to school and all that stuff. Not worth it. So there was literally one house, one perfect house that popped up literally a mile from where I went to high school, and it had a really cool history. So the very first owner of this land was literally a Civil War veteran, and he got off the train in Newton, Kansas, where the car wizard has his shop, and walked 30 miles until he found this plot in Andover and literally staked his claim. Ulysses S. Grant signed the land grant to give him the property, and he lived there and farmed for 20 years, living in a mud dugout until he became successful enough, eventually acquiring like 800 acres around him, and built his dream home, which was very large for its time, around 1895, to house his 8 children. So flash forward 120, 30 years, and here's the dumbest YouTuber buying a homestead out of Green Acres, but is not on 600 acres. He died and passed on his land to 8 kids. The youngest son inherited the property, and it's very cool. There's actually a carving in the chicken coop where in 1919, when he was a kid, he carved his name into the wood there that I found. But that's who inherited it, Floyd Wolfe. And he lived there till 1975 and then sold off the property, which the farmer only wanted the land, and he carved out 5 acres and sold the house off. And it was a rental for a long time. At some point, somebody did a massive update in the 80s when it was still reasonable to do so. So a new foundation, modern wiring, drywall, all that stuff. So that was good. But it didn't have the car barn. It didn't really have a garage at all. But it had the land. 5 acres was just perfect for me because I didn't want a big old spread to have to maintain. I wanted just enough to be able to build my dream garage. The house was sort of secondary, and the location was fantastic. But it was $850,000 for the property, which is literally what my old house, Hoovie's Garage 3.0, was worth, that I had almost paid off. But anyway, that was gone. So I start over, and I have to get a new mortgage. I put 20% down and now have a 7% mortgage. And I set out to write all the checks myself, just with YouTube money. No other money coming in, but just YouTube on transforming this house into something more modern and livable, closer to what I had before, and also building my dream garage. And since there's no restrictions, since it's not in a neighborhood with an HOA or in the city limits, I could do basically whatever I want. I could build an agricultural structure, even though I only have 5 acres, but I'm still zoned agricultural, which is kind of fun. So for my tractors, I needed a 60 by 100 building. For my tractors, for agriculture, for farming on my 5 acres. Absolutely. So that's what I did. I got the permit and decided to go with a steel structure. There's 2 options you can go with these big buildings. There's the steel buildings that are a little more expensive, but they're much sturdier, big giant steel beams for like what you see inside of a big department store or Walmart or whatever. And then there's the matchstick wood ones, much more like normal construction, a pole barn, basically. And I went with the steel, which is supposed to be rated up to an F2 tornado, which is nice to have in Kansas. And got a very detailed quote for the building. And it was actually very reasonable. So I have my spreadsheet right here, if you don't mind me referring to my notes. So to start, I put a $30,000 deposit on the building and then paid $58,500 to do a concrete slab, 60 by 100, 6,000 square feet, nice and thick and deep to do the car lifts, because I was getting a bunch of new car lifts from Ben Pack and wanted to make sure that that was in stable ground. And then the delivered building, all the materials, was another $74,000. So total materials for the building, a little over 100 grand. Not that bad. All in steel. And I don't have to paint them because all of the siding is already pre-painted. And that's also with the insulation. So the next was the massive erection of the building. Wonderful to watch this massive erection happening in my backyard. A bunch of men doing their erecting over a period of a couple of weeks. And pretty reasonable with that as well. $35,000 to have this massive erection building the building and insulating it as well. So it's completely finished out. And what's nice about it is the insulation has its own sort of nice material on the outside of it to where it's sort of like a padded wall, which makes for great sound insulation for making videos as well. So not bad. All in under 200 grand for a completely done structure. But then, of course, there's finishing it out. There's the HVAC, there's the floor paint, there's installing the lifts, there's all the electrical and the lights and all that stuff. So, another 100 and something $1,000. But then comes finishing it out, which finishing is usually the most expensive part, and yeah, we do almost double things doing that because I did want to make it nice. So I had a little fake gas station built inside that has a loft and a little parking area for a vintage car. Eventually I'm going to get some old fuel pumps to put in there, and it makes a really cool corner, a little office or a filming area upstairs. That cost me about $25,000. There's multiple bills for different things, but also there's the electrical install, and that was very expensive on this one. It's about $20,000 for electrical, for lights and getting all the right plugs and everything else, and then $30,000 for the HVAC, which is 2 units. I think I really only needed 1 because I usually just run 1 at a time. The lifts were provided, but I had to move my old one. That was very expensive to do. So moving that gigantic, crazy lift of mine is $10,000 every single time to move the lift. It's very expensive. It takes about a week. I mean, it's like erecting a building because it's absolutely crazy how complicated the apparatus is. Really cool once you put it up, and of course the cars are floating in air. And then there was the new triple stackers that I had installed on either side as well, and then 2 two-post lifts, which BenPack was kind enough to send to me for free, but then I paid for the install, about $20,000 for all of this. All in, it totaled up to $391,000 for a 6,000 square foot, totally finished out, beautiful building. The only big gotcha was at the very end, and I have this very pretty rectangle halo light. And I tried to save some money by buying one from China for about $1,000. And it makes a beautiful presentation on the cars. I saw sort of something similar in Jay Leno's garage, or like at the auction block at Barrett-Jackson. I wanted that hero light for the car to just glow, to just gleam like, oh my God, even with the biggest piece of junk ever, it makes the car look good. But some assembly required, and I wanted this thing done because all the cars were moving over. It was the big day, and I needed this light. And the electrician said, okay, we'll get it done, and brought in 5 electricians over the course of 2 days to put this together. They're screaming, fighting with each other, and things were breaking as far as brackets and stuff. They finally get it up, and I got the bill. I guess I didn't ask before, and it was $5,000 to hang a light. 1 light. That was the only big gotcha with this building. And the grand total, $391,000 for a really nice finished out building. I felt really smart about the building. The house, unfortunately, is a whole nother story. And this is where I am completely and totally wrecked. So on the house, I decided to take an 1800s farmhouse, add on to the back and make this great room with high ceilings. Take the existing garage, make it into a bedroom, and then do a little cheap slap-up garage that didn't cost more than, I think, $4,000 or $5,000. Really nice bathroom, replacing the flooring, big marble fireplace, all this stuff. My mistake was not getting multiple bids or really getting it bid out before, going with a family friend that hasn't really, I think, done big projects since COVID. And you've seen Stradman talking about the building costs of his house spiraling out of control. And I thought, well, I'm just doing a little addition. I'll probably spend $200,000-$300,000. And when I talked to the home builder, he told me, yeah, that seems about on budget. $750,000 later, the house is done. The roof was a big surprise, adding that little bit to the roof. It kind of has a commercial flat vinyl roof and metal on the sides. I got hit with $90,000 on that one, which doesn't make any sense. I've had multiple arguments with the guy saying, I'll show you the cost, break it all down. So maybe he's right. I don't know how much things cost nowadays. There was a lot of surprises, a lot of uh-ohs with an old house, as you can expect. And I literally wrote $1 million in checks in a year on this property. and all from YouTube and getting loans on existing cars and selling cars. If you'd noticed how my cars have gotten, well, probably about the same quantity, but the lower quality, like the SLS and, you know, some Ferraris gone and all that stuff, it is because I had to scrimp, scrounge, and just struggle to write these checks. And it was like the contractor knew how much money I was making every single month, and then giving me an invoice for that to where I could just barely make it. The problem now is I didn't have any extra left over to pay the taxes. I was working my butt off making videos, finding sponsors and all that stuff to pay for all this. But then Uncle Sam didn't get his quarterly checks. So now April 15th is coming up. And yeah, here we go again. Living on the edge. But compared to where I was 4 years ago, I had an almost paid off house. I was like, I can't believe he's living in a paid off house and mentioned all these garages and things. But now I'm on the other side of that economy with people who, yeah, doing a home renovation, building a new home. It just makes absolutely no sense now. Everything's so expensive. And then on top of it, the crazy interest rate on the mortgage. So I was able to refinance the house at the new value, which they appraised the house at about $300,000 less than what I had into it. And then we're able to loan 80% of that, so $1.2 million. But now I have that at 7% interest. So $7,000 a month in interest and $1,000 a month on principal. I have my dream garage! Yay! Yeah, if you're going to ask me if I was going to go back and do it all over again, absolutely on the garage. Most certainly on the garage. Because that was pretty reasonable to do for what I got. A beautiful finished out filming space where I can walk out just a couple of steps and be able to film whatever I want. And there's no windows, so if I mess something up in the edit, I can go back out there at 2 a.m. and redo it, and nobody knows the difference. It's so nice versus having to drive to the hangar, or daylight's wrong with the garage door. The glass garage door is what I had before. So it was so nice in that sense. But if I were doing it all over again, yes, the garage, and then do the house much more slowly, much more methodically, and plan it all out and get bids beforehand. For God's sake, get bids beforehand. Because yeah, I'm going to be digging out of this hole for the rest of my life. But it's a pretty nice hole. It's a very nice hole to live in. Yeah.
Successful car purchasing is all about knowing your buying power and being able to move quickly. And the best way to do that is getting pre-qualified with Premier Financial Services. Call one of these numbers, speak to one of their representatives, fill out their application, and then you'll know exactly how much car you can buy. You'll approach a seller, tell them you're already qualified, you've got your simple lease set up from Premier Financial, and you'll be able to close very quickly. That's why Premier is one of the most powerful partners in the world of exotic car financing, and that's why I turn to them every time I go out and try to buy something crazy.